Hello, 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 beautiful people. Did you miss us? We're back. We
I know you did.
definitely we definitely missed you. That's for sure, for sure, for sure.
I love you
Um,
guys.
we are your lovely host. I'm Jessica,
What up, boo boos? I'm Brittny Fontanez.
and you are listening to Mystifying Reality. So, a little disclaimer. We know that we missed a week. Don't get on our asses. Um, we're here. That's what matters. But this young lady is pregnant, and sometimes I just can't. I just can't. And you're just gonna have to deal with me. But just know that we'll always be back. My face is giving very much pregnant. And just bear with me. We got some beautiful gems to give you guys today, and we're talking about a beautiful, beautiful topic that is very intertwined with what I just said.
Literally.
We are definitely talking about mental health. So hop on the mental health wagon, folks, because that's what we're talking about today.
Facts. And thank you for the suggestion. I know someone gave us that suggestion about doing an episode on mental health, which I feel is the main thing that we all need to currently focus on. Because
Facts.
I know that in society, a lot of things about mental health are coming out, as such as like disclaimer, as in eating disorders or, anxiety or certain coping mechanisms that create such bad habits for us. And I know therapy is a huge thing now. So jumping on the bandwagon, it's really needed, because the way we're going down the road as civilization, the only power we have is the power within our mind. And that's the only way we can actually control, I wouldn't say life. If you realize we live in a world where everyone's trying to control one another, it's because they don't have control over themselves. And when we can make our mental health a priority, we wouldn't need to control the world. All we're really designed to do is to only have control over what we have, and honestly do the work of discovering self. And that's how we end up creating the life that we want to create and end up being the example that we feel the world needs. So that's where I'm at mentally. Um, for me, I've learned, like, even throughout being on the spiritual journey, I've always been so curious about the way the mind works. And I do talk a lot about this in my healing course, Awaken Prophecy. You go check that out. The link will be in the description of this episode. But so when it comes to mental health, the reason why it's important is because the mind is what really helps the whole temple, which is the body, to operate. So you have like certain lobes within the brain that activate certain nervous systems within our body to actually activate us. So for example, you have the lobes that hold memory, hold concentrations, hold emotions, and how they control them. So if we're not aware of observing our thoughts and how they affect us emotionally, because our emotions is what triggers the body to move into action. But the only way all this can actually happen is through the mind. So the mind is like an antenna. It receives an idea, it activates the emotion, and the emotion activates the body. But when we're not in a state of feeling like we're safe within our body, we're not feeling good about ourselves, or we feel like the world is against us, that's when we really got to make our mental health such a priority. Because once we can understand how our mind operates, we can understand how to operate every part and every aspect of who we are as a human being, and also in our lives. So
Ooh, okay. All right, girl. I definitely agree with Britt. I think my take on it is I'm going to get, let's see. I think we have such a stigma on the word mental health, and everyone's just so
yeah,
scared and embarrassed to talk about it or just to
so
say,
true.
my mental health is not okay right now. You know, whatever the case may be, you may be diagnosed with something, you may have been born with something, you have made like gone through some trauma maybe, and that caused you to go down a spiral, and now you're in this mental health loop. And it's like, to be honest, people, first let me just tell you that mental health is it's not the new normal because it's always been around, but it is the new normal because now we're talking about it. And
Yeah, with no shame.
although that it pisses me off that now is when people are like hopping on this bandwagon, it should have been a minute ago. I'm happy
Yeah,
that it's happening because we need it. I think that
Yeah.
it's, how do I tell you? It's a part of us. We shouldn't be ashamed of feeling down or stating that we feel some type of way today, or asking for help or getting help or working on ourselves, because that's just life. If we're not constantly striving to be better, striving to find what's better for us, finding new ways of within ourselves, then why are we here? Right?
Facts.
Yeah, we have to think about, we were put on this earth for a purpose, and one of those purposes for all of us is to find our best self and be the best we can be. Guys, I have really bad asthma, so I'm like over here struggling to talk, so just bear with me. I need to slow it down a little bit. um
Take some
but
water, hon, if you need some.
but I for sure think that it's like really important for us to be talking about this, because I always bring up the Hispanic community, because obviously that's where I come from, and I know that a lot of our listeners are Hispanic, and honestly people of color, because you, crazy as it sounds, you don't really see that in
So
other
true.
cultures, right? People, the
Hmm.
minority, I feel like because of lack of funds, lack of education, and not knowing and understanding mental health, um, we don't have these conversations with our kids. We don't have these conversations with our parents. Our parents don't know about it.
Yeah.
I grew up,
Or they like to brush it under the rug and suppress it.
exactly. I grew up in a household where crying made me feel like I was weak. Like
Mhm.
having any type of emotion, but no emotion or a happy emotion, was a, not a burden, but a problem. It made me feel like, until like 3 years ago, when I just blew up. If we want to talk about mental health, I went to an institution. I had to do the work. I had to get on medication for a while because they wouldn't release me. That's another conversation. Um, but I am here to tell you, you don't need to take medication to work on it.
Mhm.
But some people do need it. There's nothing wrong with medication, but everyone's different. I just wanted to put that out there. But
Oh
I just
yeah, of
really
course.
think that for undergrad, wanted to study psychology because of that, because I want to understand the brain. I want to understand how we're built, right? The cable box comes with many different cords, and that's our brain. So when you
Facts.
disconnect one cord, it may be the Wi Fi, and now it's off. Maybe our Wi Fi in our body is off. What does that mean for you? You know what I'm saying? So I just really think that it's important for us to just sit within ourselves and really check in, because I know that
Mhm.
a lot of us don't do that, especially if you're in a
Yeah.
big city like New York
Oh,
City, when
facts.
you're in the
Yeah.
go, go, go mentality. That's why I decided to move after I started my
Mhm.
journey of like self healing and self love, because I felt like New York City was a bowl of depression, gray, weary. Everyone's just kind of like faking it
Barely
till they make it.
sunlight. Yeah.
Exactly. We're just in between concrete. And now here in Florida, it's like the total opposite. It's all green, sunny. Even when a hurricane is here, you could still see light. Like, come on. So
Love Florida.
it's really important for us to hop on this bandwagon, because it can really do some good for real.
I agree with Jessica. Like, and the reason why I feel it's very, very important to talk about this, I know we keep saying that, but we have to be adamant about this, because if you think about it, most people try to find solutions to their internal world through the outside world. Now, again, I'm not judging anyone who takes medication,
Yeah.
but if you're not willing to do what's best for yourself and love yourself enough to look in the mirror and be like, I'm not okay, something doesn't feel right, then you're adding more to the problem. And making your mental health a priority is teaching you how to love yourself, is teaching you how
Hmm.
to be aware of yourself. Like, what if I told you the only reason why we exist is to discover ourselves and become what we envision? Because
Hmm.
we were given these visions by a higher power, because that's who we're meant to be in this lifetime. But our job is to take care of this temple. And I understand that even though we have this body temporarily, it's up to us to take care of it. And not only that, when you take care of your mental health, you're not only doing yourself a service, but what I learned a lot in this world, when people don't prioritize their mental health, they use their pain as a badge of like honor to make excuses to why they
Ooh,
are the way that they are.
ooh. Mm.
And I know a lot of people didn't want to hear that, but I have to swallow this hard pill myself because I made myself a victim from the pain I was perpetuating because I didn't want to face it. And when you face what's bringing chaos within your mind and wanting to be there within your internal chaos, you learn how to heal yourself. You learn how to be there for yourself. You know, you got to look at yourself as another person. You know, if yourself is not doing right on the inside, you got to be there like you are there for a friend. So your mind, I know that the heart was the first thing created when you are like being formed in the womb, but the reason why the mind was the second part created is because it has that interconnection to make the whole entire being who you are. So, for example, the heart and the emotions represent the spirit. And then the mind, it represents the physicality, the ego of who you are as an individual physically. And when you're not making a priority, your mind a priority, you're not making your temple or your spirit a priority. Your mental health is trying to connect you to a higher state of believing in order for you to understand a deeper level of yourself. Now, for example, for me, for my family, we do, I notice in my family, we really don't care about our mental health. We really barely even care about our health at all. I remember my grandfather, both my grandfathers I lost in 1 year, both of them. And one of them was like 63, the other one was 83. And the one that died at 83 didn't really take good care of himself on my dad's side, but he loved his life. But the one that was 63, he didn't tell no one he was sick until it was too late. It's like we have this thought that we can't be vulnerable enough to speak on what's bothering us, what's hurting us. We think our thoughts are burdensome. We think that speaking about what's going on in the inside, it's shameful. And it's important to make your mental health a priority even when you go out. Like, say you have friends who are asking you to go out and you don't want to go out, and you explain to them like, my mind is not in the right state, I'm not in a place to do this, I can't do this right now. If you're not able to do that, then you're neglecting yourself. And mental health is all about prioritizing self. And I know that all of us, we go to work every day, we don't want to do it. That's how self-love is. It's a job. It's a job we have to show up to every single day and care for ourselves. And it took me a long time to learn this because I did suffer from depression very heavily and at a very young age. And even with anxiety, to the point, like even at a very young age, I remember I was talking to my dad one day and we were like having that heart to heart talk where we were just crying so much to each other because for so many years we didn't have such a bond. That now that we're growing a bond, it's like everything is pouring out that was so suppressed. And I remember him telling me, he's like, Britt, I remember when you were like in fourth for third grade and school brought me and your mom there, and the therapist was like, we want to put your daughter on pills for ADHD. And my dad completely neglected them. It was like, no, you're not going to put my kid on pills. And don't get me wrong, I had a really tough childhood. And even in my adolescent years, I had a tough time, even in my early 20s. And recently, having this talk with my dad, like going through all of that, I thought something was wrong with me. But after he told me that story, he's like, Brittany, there's nothing wrong with you. If anything, you inspire me because you went through so much that you found a way out of it. And the way that I'm not saying I don't struggle with it to this day. I still struggle with, thinking that monsters are attacking me or coming after me, or just thinking about dark thoughts, or thinking about how I want to end my life sometimes. Those thoughts still come up. But what helps me overcome them is the matter of I have the power to master my mind. My mind does not master me. It's just a matter of how much am I willing to check in myself? How much am I willing to choose myself over temptations and over pleasing other people? It's a matter of saying that I'm tired of suffering. I want to face the suffering, because we can't overcome something until we go through it. So the way to prioritize your mental health is by first observing what is heckling your mind. what is causing havoc within your thought process, and observe it. Because most of us, the reason why we don't prioritize our mental health is because we identify with our thoughts when we actually have to observe them. We are not our thoughts. Our thoughts are just perpetuating projections from other people and how we used to think as a child and the things that we went through. But really, what they're trying to show you is that I want you to face this so I can release this energy from you. That's really all thoughts are. They're just indicating to us that there's something within inside of us that's taking us out of alignment, that's taking us forgetting ourselves. And when we don't prioritize our mental health, what we're doing, we're running away from ourselves. And this is why a lot of people use the excuse as, this is just who I am. It's not who you are. It's just what you went through. And in order to find a different way to look at life and feel better about yourself is by facing what is not true about yourself and actually rewriting what you want to be true. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you for coming to her TED Talk, because holy shit. No, for real. And
Oh yeah.
that's the crazy part. Like, we didn't put up an episode last week just because of that. Because
Yeah.
I sat in this chair for like 3 hours and contemplated pushing myself to put out an episode because I am committed. And then part of me was like, you feel really bad. I think you need to go to the hospital. And I sat there until I was like, you know what? The last 20 minutes before we were supposed to meet, I called Brittany in tears and we had a conversation. And she said, no, you need to take care of you because your mental health is what matters. And look where we are
Exactly.
now. So I'm very grateful for that because I'm still working on it. I'd say that I've gotten better since I came out of the hospital. A lot of things obviously have come out better from that experience, but we really have to pay attention to our pride and just like
Yeah.
being okay with not being okay, because no,
Exactly.
it's not okay. It's not okay.
Exactly.
And it's
I
okay.
think that's what pride kills. I think pride is what makes illness in the body, honestly.
It's ridiculous. Like, it's okay to be like, I'm not okay. And it's also okay for someone to tell you, I don't know how to help you. They don't
Yeah.
need to, because at the end of the day, who needs to put in the work is you. And if you feel
Mm-hmm.
like you don't want to take the route of watching videos and, learning about
Studying.
how you feel, then get professional help. It's okay, because that's what they're
Mm-hmm.
here for. I just feel like people think that as soon as you talk about working on your mental health, it's like, oh, I need a therapist and I need to get on medication and I need to go on this whole life journey. Don't get me wrong.
They think something's wrong with them. That's why they
Exactly.
think like that.
It's
Yeah.
a whole life journey. But
Mm-hmm.
doing things like eating healthy if you don't eat healthy or if you don't eat at all, drinking water, having a sleep schedule, creating a schedule for yourself, reading a book,
Mm-hmm.
all those things play a part into bettering your mental health. And just a lot of people just don't. They don't
It's
realize
true.
that. And it sucks. But that's
It
the
does.
reality of it. We just need to really get it together because, like Brittany said, the way this world is going, the one thing that no one can take away from you is your power. And if you don't
Mm-hmm.
have self love and if you don't understand what bothers you, what helps you, what do you need to move forward?
People will use that against you too.
Exactly. It's your
Yeah.
weakness. Your power can be
Mm-hmm.
your weakness if you don't know how to use it right. So,
Exactly.
this is your sign.
Right. Damn, I was gonna say something, but I was listening to what was it? Please come back to me. You will. But um I was gonna say that, oh, that's what I was gonna say. Thank you. That I'm a healer, you guys. I'm on this journey. I'm a healer. I'm a reader. I have my own clientele. I have my own business, but I have a therapist. What's cool about me is that I have a therapist because a healer needs healing as well. I have
Mm-hmm.
a actual therapist, and then I have a spiritual therapist. So they both help me. I have my actual therapist that helps me with my internal trauma, like the real like deep psychological stuff, and then I have my spiritual therapist that helps me with the spiritual vibrational aspect of what's underneath the surface. So I share all this with you guys because there's no shame in realizing that you don't know how to take care of yourself. But that's the first acknowledgement with for mental health. In order to help yourself, you have to recognize that one, you're not a problem and there's nothing wrong with you, but realizing that there is something that doesn't feel right. And when you can acknowledge that, you will find ways that help you. Now, like Jessica said, it's great to eat well, drink water, exercise, create a routine. But I'm here to tell you, all those things are great, but they won't actually last unless you take care of the psychological aspect of what's going on inside of you. A lot of people don't understand the way that we act and the way that we show up in life is caused from certain um mechanisms that the mind is so used to based off of trauma. And when we don't work on our mental health, those will create patterns and create states of suffering and creating like havoc within our life and our finances, our family, our work life. And it's very important to acknowledge what's going on in your mind, because when you can, you like, for me, for instance, going to therapy, I've been doing a lot of EMDR. And what that is that I go within my mind, because the mind, a lot of people understand, it's so powerful that it protects you, but it also blocks you. It protects you from not reliving certain traumas because it doesn't want you to face that. But that very thing you don't want to face is actually holding you back.
Yeah.
So during therapy, I'm doing like deep states of what has triggered me in my life, like the experiences that brought trauma. And when I actually relive those moments, I feel the uncomfortability of it. I recognize the belief system that was created by it. And I recently learned that all my life I've lived in survival mode. And now that I'm learning to regulate my nervous system because I've been so out of alignment, it's like not only am I starting to feel safe within my own body, but I'm starting to recognize how I operated all these years up until this moment was from a place of wounding and lack. And because I wasn't aware of what was going on within my mind. But since I became so observant and so curious about what makes me think this way, I've been able to find ways to stop being in a state of survival and start feeling like I can feel safe, I can rest, I can surrender, I can realize that in the state of stagnation or sadness, I don't look at it as something bad or identify with it. I just see it as there's something going on. Let me feel it. Let me have compassion for myself. Anything, the way that I used to look at my mental health was like, fuck you. I don't like you. I don't love you. Now I look at it as like, I'm like a parent to myself now, where I
Mhm.
have so much compassion for when I have those down moments, because now I realize they're part of the process too. And when you take care of your mental health, you can learn to enjoy the ebbs and flow of life rather than judge it and judge yourself.
Exactly. You don't have to like your mental health, but you do have to accept it because it is a part of you.
Yes.
Whether you
Mhm.
wanted it to be in you, whether, you're not the problem that caused it to be in you, you still are a part of it. And so you kind of need to learn to work with it because I, for one, was diagnosed with depression, which, by the way, this is important that we have this conversation because I feel like I was born depressed. Like from a young
Mm.
age, I've had the feelings that I've had as a grown adult. And I started learning about mental health after I graduated my like what my undergrad. So like 2017. So
Mm.
it's about understanding what's happening, and people get scared and people get kind of like, "Oh my gosh, you said you want to die. You said you want to kill yourself." By all means, that's not okay, and no one deserves to take their life. That just means that they need a little bit extra loving.
Yeah.
But I just
Mhm.
want to put a disclaimer that if you ever been in a moment where you're desperate and you feel like giving up and you just don't want to do anything and you're just like, I don't need to do anything, that's a form of wanting to die. And I say this with all love just so that we realize that you don't have to say the words, I want to kill myself to want to. And I'm not saying it's okay because it's not. You're loved and you deserve to be on this world and you deserve to see yourself on the other side of that storm. But it's pretty common and it's pretty normal, believe it or not. And it's just like we put so much pressure on ourselves for feeling some type of way. But instead of like working against it, we need to work with it. And that's That's where we're
Yeah.
coming from. I think that you see a lot of stride in people who don't know what they're doing, but they're trying to figure it out because they know they need to come out of it. And it's
Yeah.
important. And mental health brings a lot of other problems: addiction to drugs, addiction to drinking, addiction to sexual activities that you don't
Even
care
addiction
about.
to pessimism as well, like to
Exactly.
sadness and all that. Yeah.
Sadness, addiction to bad friendships. Oh, and that's another thing. When you start doing the work and you start working on yourself, there's going to be places that trigger you. There's going to be people that trigger you. There's going to be phrases
Mm-hmm.
that trigger you. Anything can trigger you. And I'm here to say, whether it's family, whether it's a partner, whether it's a dog, not that you need to kill the dog, but you need to get rid of all those things because you won't truly heal in an environment that hurt you. You need to get out of that environment. So
Facts.
I just needed to say that because I know that that was one of the things for me that's why I left New York, because it was just so toxic and I just needed a
Mm-hmm.
fresh new start. And although it's not going the best for me, we're working on it. Everyone
Yeah.
says it, you're better in Florida.
You are a lot better in Florida. I admit that.
So we got to get on it,
but
folks.
so let's just recap everything that we just said, you guys, so we can assist you on your mental health journey. Be okay wanting help.
Yeah.
Be okay knowing that you need help.
Yep.
But first, accept the fact that you want to do better. And it starts with realizing that something's not right now. And that's okay. And don't feel any shame in this, because we live in a world that strives off of toxicity. And we do that, like Jessica said, we do things we don't want to do, but our mind is so like yearning for it. We have to break out of that. Because in order to really save ourselves and transform ourselves, we need to recognize what is it that we're putting our focus on that's not helping us, and stop trying to fight that, but start focusing on what will help us and start feeding that. And it starts by accepting, becoming aware, and being okay getting help. Because here's the thing, if we're meant to know everything, we wouldn't exist.
Exactly.
But if we are meant to break out of a place that we feel like it's like we have to move past it, then your body will let you know what you need to do if you allow yourself to listen to your internal world rather than always trying to keep up with the world outside of you. So just understand, prioritizing your mental health gives you an advantage over a lot of things. Now, I'm not saying to take advantage of things. I'm saying to have an advantage, meaning that if you could understand how your mind works, if you could understand how you feel, if you could understand how you act, how you show up, your flaws, your insecurities, your the great aspects about yourself, then nothing in this world will bother you or dismantle your spirit, because you know you. And even with people with power like that, like people always say, you're mentally strong. Like, how are you always optimistic? It's because I choose to be happy. And even when I'm not happy, I'm not forcing myself to be happy. I'm forcing myself to embrace what's going on that's going to lead me to that happiness and even into a deeper level of happiness. So just realize that it's okay not being okay. Accept where you are, accept help, but also embrace the fact that the low moments and the ebbs are literally assisting you to your happiness if you allow yourself to go through it and be there for you.
You definitely got this. And like I always say, be comfortable being uncomfortable, because that's going to get you
Yes.
farther in life. And if no
Hmm.
one has ever told you, we're proud of you, we love you, and you got this. And you guys can feel free to email us at our email, Mystifying Reality Podcast at Gmail.
Yeah.
Hit us up on Instagram, Mystifying Reality Podcast. We're more than happy to talk to you guys and more than happy to
Facts.
talk about ideas or what we think that you should do. We're not doctors. We're not going to tell you uh, certain things, but we can tell you what worked for us, and things that helped us, and we can get you started if that's what you need. If you're scared to talk to someone, or
Absolutely.
don't have anyone, we're here for that, for sure. That's the whole reason why we did this podcast, so that people that have felt like us in the world have someone. So
Exactly. Just
Thank
remember that, you guys, you are not alone, and we're here for you. Hence why we created this podcast for you. Literally.
Exactly. So thank you guys for listening. We love you very much, and we'll see you next week.
Deuces, only love.